Hello guys, today I want to show you how to implement a WebView, so how to display web application in your app. So first of all, we need to define in Gradle one dependency, so it will be Android X WebKit, and by this day it's this version, but you need to check it by yourself because it can change. Yeah, and it is the first thing. And the second we need is, of course, internet permission to display our website, because without it we can't even access our browser or anything. Okay, and now, as you can see, I've prepared some HTML code with some CSS to display, but it will be one of the things I show you, because with WebKit you can either display HTML code directly, or you can use URL, which I show you in a moment too. So first of all, we need to create some function like WebView screen, and I will be providing URL I've prepared previously. And now we define function, then URL as a string, because we will be treated as a string. Okay, and now we need to define the first thing is context. We use context of a composable, so you can see without assigning a composable to this function I can access this context, because it is assigned to composable. And the second thing we need to create is, of course, our WebView references, so like this WebView, and we need to provide context. And because WebView is combined with XML layouts, we need to use some kind of provider, like in my case it is Android View. So I use Android View to display WebView content, because as I said, it is used in XML by default. So Android View is used to display XML content. And we provide factory. So what we want to create, we define context of this thing in here, and then we use our references to WebView with remember, and we use apply to do operation on our WebView. And now the first thing, let's say I show you how to use loadUrl. So we use previously prepared URL, and we displayed it like this. So now I run my app. Okay, we need to wait a little bit. Okay, I don't turn JavaScript because it's the most important thing to enable JavaScript, because without it you can of course display browser content, but most of the things in internet use JavaScript, because it's not only HTML, CSS, but JavaScript to perform dynamic actions too. So yeah, as you can see, my URL has been displayed. As I typed, it should be Google with YouTube in search. I created this setup to show you something in later, but right now I want to show you the second thing, which is loading data. So right now, instead of loading a URL, we will display HTML code from here I previously prepared. So I can display the HTML code directly, so we need to convert this code. So I use encode to string. I define that this is HTML code, and I want to transfer to byte array, and I need to specify the second parameter, which is no padding, and it's just encoded HTML as a string, which I provide in here. And except that, we need to define the meme type. So I define the type of this file, so it's a text HTML. And the second thing, I define encoding, because we use in here base 64 to encode this HTML, because it can be displayed directly. And now I run my app to load this HTML code data. And as you can see, my code has been displayed. So yeah, those are two things you can use to display WebView, so with URL content or with your predefined HTML code. So let's move on to some more advanced topics some people need. So the first thing will be how to controlling from WebView, from this browser, your Android app, because right now we are only displaying this app, but it don't do anything. It doesn't do anything useful we want. So to do that, we need to define a class like web app interface that we provide in our options in here in a moment. And we need to pass, in my case it will be a context, because I will be displaying a toast to show you this communication interface. And we need to create a function like show toast, of course, with a toast that will be provided from WebView, not by our app. And in here it's a simple toast based on the context. The text is a toast that will be provided from our page. Then we specify the length of our toast and we display it. Okay, and the most important thing is to specify this thing as a JavaScript interface. And in here we add JavaScript interface, web app interface, and we provide in here context from our Android view. And we need to specify the name of our class. And I will be explaining in a moment clearly what is happening in here. So right now I show you the result first. So as you can see, I click say hello button and hello Android is displayed. So what is happening? It's a very simple setup, because we create in HTML an HTML button with value which is text say hello, and on click show Android toast. So when we click this button, this function from our JavaScript is triggered, and this function is in here as a JavaScript. we define this script as a JavaScript, as I mentioned previously, and in here is function show Android toast. Then in here, parameter as a toast, which is provided in here, hello Android, and in here we trigger next function. So right now it's right here we trigger JavaScript function, and JavaScript function trigger Android function. So in here we use Android because we define our class that will be shared to WebView as an Android. So this is the name we use, and we call show toast in here. So what we see is this class, this function, but what WebView see is Android and this function. And right now Android function is called, toast is provided in here as a string, and it is displayed in here because we defined this function as a JavaScript interface, so it is shared to WebView. So I think it's a very useful option to use to change something. So yeah, okay. And the next very useful thing which I want to show you is how to handle page navigation, because let's say we load our URL again, and I show you how to control this web view, how to take more control over it. So right now when I click on YouTube, for example, okay, the YouTube is loaded, but as you can see it's not YouTube in our web view, but it was called as a separate app, because that's how Android is working. So when I click on this YouTube link, Android is trying to find an intent for this YouTube. So Android sent an intent. So let's say we want to display this YouTube in our web view, not as a separate app. So I turn off this YouTube, and now we will be setting this thing to show it as in our web view. So we use something called my WebViewClient, will be the name of my class, and I provide context for my class again, and we need to specify that we want to inherit from WebViewClient. Then we will be defining some things. So I copy the code from my resources previously prepared, because it will be easier for me and for you. And okay, what we are doing in here, and of course let's define our WebViewClient in here, but it's the most simple thing because we override the default WebViewClient with our implementation of this class. And what we do right here, we overriding, as the name suggests, URL loading. So is instead giving the control of this URL loading to Android, we take control over it, and in here we take an URL from a request URL. So when I click on this YouTube, the request is called, and we get from this request URL, so we get this link, and then I check if this URL host contains YouTube URL link. I explain later why I use contains YouTube and not something like, for example, URL or host equals this YouTube. because the URL is changing, as I show you in a moment. So we need to use some regular expressions to find this link, and we define that if the request contains our YouTube link, we want to return false. So we specify that we will be overriding this behavior. But if this URL won't be YouTube, we just let Android to take control over this intent and to just display it as a separate app. So let's run this thing and I show you why I use this contains. Okay, so the first thing, we run it. Okay, and as you can see, the YouTube is open in the background, but it doesn't matter because you can see, of course, that the YouTube has been opened in our web view. And as you can see in the logcat, the two links has been triggered. So what happened? So the first thing, YouTube Android was trying to call an intent with YouTube, but because it was failure, it was trying to call again this YouTube link, but as a mobile version, because you can see this prefix M, which stands for mobile. So it was trying to call YouTube as a desktop version, then mobile, but because those two links have been failured, we take control over it with our overriding URL loading, and we display YouTube in our web view, not as a separate app. So now I will be showing you the last thing in this video. So I will go back, and as you can see, our content, our app closed. But why? In normal web browser, when we click some link and we go back, it should go to the previous page, but it won't happen. And why? This is how Android is working by default. So we need to take control over this bug behavior, and we can do this with a very simple setup. So first of all, we need to create some function that we will be using to recognize whether we can go back or not, and we define as a false by default. Then we will be using bug handler. So right now we are overriding bug behavior, so we take control over this bug button, and we want to specify that it is enabled only when can go back is true. So when our app is in WebView, when it is in YouTube and it can't go back, it should take control over bug behavior. Otherwise, we should let Android to do with this bug thing whatever Android want. And then we define in bug handler WebView go back. So when go back is enabled, bug handler is enabled, we take control over this bug button and we go back with WebView. And the last thing, because right now can go back doesn't do anything, we need to specify in our WebViewClient on page finished. So when our new page is finished, so when it's loaded, we want to check if our view, so it is WebView, and we want to check whether can go back is true. So when YouTube is loaded, we want to check whether we can go back, because right now we can go back because we have a page, we have a previous page to display. And we want to specify in here a lambda. In my case, it will be lambda, but of course you can handle this thing in any other way you want. But for simplicity, I use can go back lambda, and I specify in here true. And of course, we need to release this can go back. So when we can't go back, because for example, when I back too many times, it will be a moment when there will be no other pages to go back. So then I want to release this button. And right now the last thing is to, of course, take from this lambda and to override to change our variable. So we define can go back like can go back. Okay, yeah, and we use can go back in here. Okay, and we are launching an app. Okay, and I click on YouTube. Yeah, so on page finished is triggered. Now Android can check whether can go back is true or not. It should be true because there is page to go back. And as you can see, it's true. Can go back has been called with true, and it goes in here. Can go back is changed to true, and back handler is enabled with our web go back. But as you can see right now, because there is no page to go back to, because this was the first page we displayed, so Android take control over this back handler because it was disabled by us by can go back to false in here. So it was everything in this video. So I hope it was helpful for you. As I mentioned previously, you can use loadUrl, you can use loadData with predefined HTML code, you can override WebClient to not let Android take control over those links, but to display everything in your WebView. And you can go even deep further, because you can even take control over back handling. So I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you subscribe my channel and you watch next videos. So bye bye.